thoughts about Prince Andrew and the news we broke yesterday about the settlement with Virginia Giuffre. But what next for the royal? Is there a way his reputation can be rehabilitated so he can be part of royal engagements? Or is it even possible to imagine now? I mean, some people maybe think it's distasteful even to discuss it, that he has his honorary titles back. What we need really to understand here is that this is about reputation management, and someone who's adept at that is Richard Hillgrove from 6 Hillgrove PR, who joins me now.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Richard, you know, some people may take the view that reputation management is a disreputable business in of itself. Now, I don't know what it is you do, but I suspect part of the things that you do, and I understand why it's important that firms like yours exist, is when people are facing allegations, you help them manage that process, right?
Absolutely. Well, you can't, look, when it's all going wrong, you just can't make it go away. And things, you know, in this sort of .com era, things can engulf you very, very quickly. Everything spreads across the planet in about an hour. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to turn it off. What you can do, though, is ride the surf, you know, get on the surfboard and ride the wave. Mm. And with someone like Prince Andrew, I think he's had some bad advice. They've obviously adopted the idea of transparency as key. The whole Newsnight interview, coming on there like that, he didn't handle himself well at all, and it just made it a lot worse.
Right. And well, I mean, apparently, doesn't that demonstrate or belie his arrogance that he decided to, as I understand it, against clear advice to continue with that interview? Would you advise him otherwise?
Based on his ability to handle the questions and the interview, I would not have advised him to do that. I would have not have advised him to be there in court trying to sort of handle it all himself as well. It would be better to hide behind the lawyers. But, you know, that was a big mistake he made. He thought, hey, transparency is key. That's the number one rule in reputation management. I know best. But, you know, if you're the type of person that can handle that, go for it. But he's not the type of person that can handle it, and that made it a lot worse for him. I think his situation has now been managed from on high. And I think, you know, the fact they wanted a jury trial played to the fact the Americans love the whole theatre of a jury trial.
Well, can I just ask you about that? I mean, there you have him less than a blink of an eye ago, and I actually understood this point of view to say, look, I am an innocent man, and bring it on, right? That's what you're talking about here, not just openness, but to say, I am prepared, come what may, to risk my reputation going through whatever proceedings are thrown my way because I want to clear my name. Some may argue, the more sceptical, the more realistic amongst us, that the reason he did that is because he knew that there were never going to be criminal proceedings brought against him for a variety of reasons, some of which we heard yesterday, but it was too difficult, and there were various issues tragically bringing issues of sexual allegations of this kind that are historic and so on and so forth. So there's never going to be a criminal trial. A civil trial was unlikely, so it was easy for him to say, bring it on. It was a good PR strategy, in other words.
Yeah, I think it was a legal strategy and a PR strategy in a way, because the whole extremity of having his titles removed, so he's no longer royal, he no longer has these superpowers, he's now, he's a mere mortal. Mm-hmm. He had that. That was an extreme act. And then all of a sudden this whole, let's have a jury trial, let's go the full hog, kind of played the other side's bluff, and it worked. I mean, some people thought that was an insane idea. Right. Asking for a jury trial, but it worked, didn't it? And we've got a settlement. The main thing is, in the Queen's Platinum Jubilee year, she doesn't need the embarrassment of her favourite son being hauled through the courts.
Okay, well, I get that, but let's just see, is there a route back for him? I mean, if you read not just social media, you know, there are lots of shouty on there. It's hard for you to get any kind of balanced view, but there doesn't appear to be really any sympathetic quarter anywhere that's looking sadly at the fact that he is no longer in public life. If you were advising him, what would you say?
Well, Rob, I'd say, you know, he's been there before, you know, having controversy with Libyan arms deals and friends with Gaddafi and all that. And he was kind of unofficial official for a long time. And, you know, the Prince at the Palace entrepreneur scheme, what's it called? It was the entrepreneur scheme pitch at the Palace.
Right.
Let's get that right. But that was not an official role. He'd already carved out an unofficial role, and I think that will come back again, whether it's with that or with something else. I think.
Well, just let me stop you. Don't you think there's a unique stigma? We know there is around allegations of sexual violence. You know, that people are prepared to tolerate, you know, perhaps that there are muddy waters when you're a royal and, you know, money and so on and so forth. People are more kind of willing to forgive. But this is over a cliff, surely, isn't it?
I think maybe 5 years ago that could have been the case, but there's been such a deluge of accusations now that the real cases are suffering. And so just on a he said, she said kind of whim, the media will report accusations, and it's just gone completely
Well, I'm
insane.
going to stop you there, because one of the difficulties is not a he said, she said, right? We actually, apart from the fact that he might have been at Pizza Express and he doesn't sweat, we've not actually heard his side of the case. Or it's a doctored photo. That's his case, you know, in a nutshell. There's been no non-disclosure agreement signed, it appears, by Virginia Giuffre, which means that she is free. Let's be clear about this. She is free to write her book, to write her film, to sell the rights to Netflix. No doubt, I suspect that company are looking for an actress now. There's obviously an irony that Netflix are paying his nephew a great deal of money on around the same time. And so part of the reason his reputation can't be restored, and you or a firm like yours is going to have difficulties, because even if there's quiet around the time of the Platinum Jubilee and the extraordinary work that Her Majesty the Queen has done, this is going to come back year after year in story after story when she writes her book and the miniseries ends up on telly.
I just don't think so. I think, you know, there's a situation. I represented Bikram Choudhury, who was the Indian hot yoga guru, and the Netflix film got made about it. But many of the accusers have got in touch with them since and apologised. I mean, the whole thing kind of blows over. In this current age, in 2022, we're in a situation where we've seen it all before, and there's nothing that can surprise anyone. And I think, honestly, I mean, the dust will settle. I don't think Andrew should do much this year. I think he should stay really low. But come in the next year, it's not going to keep coming back and biting him. People get extremely bored of the narrative because there's not really much evidence there.
No, I don't know. I think there'll be families up and down the country with daughters and so on and so forth looking at this and thinking, there are certain things that are intolerable. You represented Bikram Choudhury, the yogi who was accused of various things on that programme. Do you say his reputation has then been restored? I mean, most places...
No, it's a bit of a long-term project. It's not been restored, but
right.
He was being destroyed by accusation, and
right.
Because he's no longer in America, and that was another civil case.
Right.
He hasn't, been brought to justice in inverted commas. But I mean, there's more to tell on that story, I have to say. Right.
I mean, that's an interesting one because you demonstrate my point with sexual allegations. It's different from financial double dealing. You know, there is something within the social psyche that finds it totally intolerable. And in the case of Bikram,
how many household names have you now seen? Dustin Hoffman, I think Robert De Niro. Everyone's been put in the frame. A lot of these things have just sort of like disappeared. But at the beginning, with the sort of hashtag Me Too, it was Harvey Weinstein. And for a brief period, for 9 months, I represented the UK PR for Rose McGowan, who wrote the book Brave and accused Harvey Weinstein. But I just think that was the sort of peak in which the hysteria hit, where everyone was absolutely shocked. Now, I'm not taking away from real domestic abuse cases and real rape. I'm talking about absolute media hysteria around sort of accusations that are not even proven in court, and it travels around the world. Andrew's had nothing nailed on him whatsoever. Not really.
Well, apart from a settlement in which he has apologised, I think you're going to struggle both on behalf of your client that you have now, and if you were representing Prince Andrew, you and I would be disagreeing on our strategy across the table. Nevertheless, it's been very interesting to listen to you. That's Richard Hillgrove from 6 Hillgrove PR. You're listening to Rob Rinder. This is Talk Radio.